So I'm just going to show you on this cracked cell how you can use the copper wire as tabbing wire. Now I ran out of tabbing wire on a panel and it had a lot of cracked cells, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just try some copper wire. So I took some 22 gauge, stripped the wire off. It's just telephone wire or Cat5, and you can just get that really easily. And you just strip the insulation off and it just peels right off the wire, and then you have a nice long piece of copper wire. So that's pretty simple. But now I don't recommend this. This is not the proper way to do this, but it's just if you want to throw together something and you don't have any tabbing wire, then this does work actually. So tabbing any cell, you want to apply some flux. So I have a little tiny little paintbrush here, and I'm just going to dip into the flux, very tiny little amount, and just brush it along this white spot here, and just tiny little bit, because if you use too much, then it gets onto the surface of the cell. Okay, so there's a little tiny amount on there now. And you can take the copper wire or your tabbing wire, whatever you're using, but this is I'm just showing you how you can use this copper wire. And I'm just going to clamp the copper wire onto the glass. It's one way of doing it, or you can hold it with a weight. And then spread it across, line it up, the wire down right there in the middle, and it'll keep it flush as you begin your solder. Okay, there we go. And you can just move this along and then continue right there. That's perfect. And then move down. Now the best way is to go from one side to the other side, because the whole thing warps as you're soldering. So the best way to do this is to just go from one side to the other, because then it won't make the wire bend the cell, and it'll raise up. So once you get a few tacks, there we go. So like I said, you don't have to continue the complete solder all the way across, because it does mess up the front of the cell. You can wipe this down with some water, I guess, to clean off the flux. That's what I did, but I'm not sure if it is a good idea. So if you want to quickly just go across. And there we go. So it's now tabbed on the front. So I'm going to do the back side now. Just dip in your brush, get a little bit of flux. And you should use a flux pen for this. I don't have one, but I want to get one and try it and see how that works. And just brush your flux along the surface. The back side really doesn't matter how messy, as long as you wipe it down after some clear water. And just going to take the piece of copper, straighten it out, and then I'm going to clamp it down to the glass here. Do this side first. Okay, and then just stretch it over top of the cell, and I'll just put a weight in the center for now. And you can put another weight at the other end if you want. Okay, so take your iron, and you can then put a little solder on your iron. and let the resin burn off, or you can just apply it. It doesn't really matter. And so you're just gonna tack just first, and then move your way forward in one direction, because if you try to tack on this side, the wire will actually raise up, and because the whole thing's warping from the heat. So you want to just continue along, and like I said, you don't have to solder this all the way along. You only have to make a few little tacks here and there, because some of these cells actually only have a few areas where you solder to them. So, but this one you can solder all the way across, but those ones, they just have a spot here, and usually like about 3 spots. But with these cells, if that spot is damaged and you can't solder to it, then you can still just continue soldering. That's why these ones are a little better. And then I'm gonna just solder on the next row here. Just take your wire, and then you can just want to try to solder it as quickly as possible, because they do crack if you heat them up too much, too quickly, and too long. You can see how it sticks. It doesn't always stick to the whole surface. I only recommend this for broken cells, and just for if you have no tabbing wire and you just want to build a panel, and just basically for fun, because you should tab this properly. So now, once I've tabbed both sides with the copper wire, I'm gonna cut off the excess. So just clip them off, the copper wires. Make sure you clip the right ones off. So I'm cutting off right now the positive ones. Okay. And then we have our negatives here. And then I'm going to cut off the negatives on the top, so that we have, make sure you double check, because if you cut the wrong ones. Okay, so there we go. And then you can just cut these to length and join them together. So there's a cell tabbed with copper wire.